Hello everybody, how's it going? My name's Ben, welcome aboard the Bonny Rackham, and we are on to Season 2, Episode 7 today. It's a really good episode ahead of us, so yeah, let's get straight into a title.
First item.
Okay, so yeah, this is one of those pretty self-explanatory titles, and where I'll say the word a lot. And the title today is going to be Duality. I think it's a big theme in this episode. It's going to cover a lot of what's going on with a lot of our characters. Yeah, a lot of conflictions, a lot of duality to their personalities and things like that. So, yeah, without further ado, again, one of those ones that will sort of explain itself as we go along. So, yeah, let's get into Episode 7, Duality.
Next item.
Okay, so this one is written by Lisa Schultz Boyd, another new name, but the name Schultz, her middle name, I don't know if that's connected to Dan Schultz, who is, I want to say producer. I think he's written as well, maybe, I can't remember. And this one is directed by Alex Sakharov, and he's back again after a one-episode hiatus. He did, obviously, the fantastic episode 5. So yeah, we are in good hands here. Yeah, okay, yeah, I feel like I have a lot more to say this episode. It's very character-driven, a lot to get into. So yeah, let's get into this. So we open with a great night shot of the fort. Vane's crew are working outside while Abigail is talking about Miranda Hamilton to Eleanor. Obviously, they're in the cell. Eleanor went, didn't she, to grab her last episode. So yeah, Abigail remembers Miranda fondly, and she listens to Eleanor's reasoning that Vane's plans have now changed, and he has no immediate intentions to release her back to her father. Eleanor name drops Captain Flint, and Abigail gives a frightened gasp. She knows the name, has heard of his reputation from her father, of course. Yeah, of course, a lot of history there. We know some of it, we've seen a lot of it, and we're going to get a lot more present stuff in future episodes as well. Abigail wants Eleanor to promise that this isn't her escaping from one madman into the hands of another. Eleanor vouches for Flint and encourages her to read the letter Miranda has provided. So we get a little bit more of them in a bit. Okay, so now at the camp on Nassau, and Flint and Hornigold are watching on, sort of separately, as the men are getting ready to cast their votes. If you remember, Hornigold issued a kind of ultimatum in the end of last episode. So Hornigold gives Flint a smug smile. Yeah, you keep doing that, mate. Won't be smiling soon. Billy comes to speak to Flint. Couple of good scenes with these two this episode. Billy tells him that he's heard he's up by three votes, and Flint thinks it's 4. Billy discusses how someone's vote was thrown just out of spite. Very fickle. We're getting into the theme of loyalty and trust early on. Yeah, trust and duality, a big part of this episode especially. So yeah, they discuss that a bit, and Flint says a man casts his vote for the same reason he does anything else in life, because it feels good. And then he goes on to say the thing that will decide this vote hasn't happened yet. True, but not in the way he's thinking right now. Billy works out, he's planning one of his inspirational speeches to talk the men into the logic of waiting, rather than rushing into battle tonight under Hornigold's orders sort of thing. But Billy makes some good counterpoints as to why it could equally go in Benjamin's favour. This is a really good Billy episode. We're going to see a bit of the braver, ballsier Billy has come out of this experience. More of him in a bit. Their discussion is interrupted when Dufresne tells Flint they're ready to go. Yeah, so Hornigold pretty much lays his speech out all the way Billy said, saying it's all promises with Flint, it's never about the past or here and now. He's getting into it all, and a concerned-looking Silver comes to speak to Flint, who wonders where he's been. He has news. We see the 2 men they sent out a couple of episodes ago to watch over the scattered gold are back, and Silver lays it out to Flint. There is no longer any gold to watch over. It's gone, he says. Of course, with everyone in close proximity, all the crews, they all hear it, and soon enough it's spread around the camp. And obviously back to that development in a bit, because of course, Silver be lying. Yeah, fantastic Silver episode as well. So yeah, we cut to a young boy burning Anne's blooded clothes in a fire bin. It looks like he's about to chuck her hat in. How very dare you. But Max grabs it just in time. Okay, yeah, Anne about to break our hearts alert. Finally, a big chunk of her background. I think from her reactions to Max's ordeal back in season 1, you could work out she'd been through her own shit in that regards from it, but you have no idea how bad it is until she gets into it in this episode, and just how far back and bonded she and Jack really are. So yeah, so Anne's in bed. She's still just lost adrift. She's just not there, pretty much. And Max tenderly puts her hat away. You know, Anne Bonny's hat being hidden away in a cupboard, quite symbolic for everything she's about to go through this episode, and this identity crisis that Anne is having right now. Max tells her anything tying her to yesterday's events are gone, but of course not for Anne, not in here. Max then takes out a dress and some shoes. Very not Anne Bonny. Max says they won't fit, but they are clean. Yeah, very poignant line. Yeah, we will see these are not Anne Bonny clothes. They do not fit her at all in either sense. And Max says when she's ready, she'll be downstairs and they can discuss what happens next. Yeah, it doesn't look like Anne's going to say anything, and then she drops the trauma dumps of all trauma dumps. So yeah, we learn she was married to a man who beat her and burned her and all this horrible stuff and shared her with his men. She was 13. I like the direction the show took with her past, hard as it is to watch, but I think it finally gives us some real understanding into her character and why she is the way she is. And obviously, again, we're going to get into the Jack part of it in a minute. And Anne says, I didn't know I could do any different. I didn't know I could do anything about it. Yeah, girl, that's the motto of trauma hindsight, unfortunately. And then she goes on to say, one day a man came and saw her husband hurting her. He walked over and slit his throat. And yeah, that was Jack. Yeah, that just makes his victory from last episode. You know, he sliced Linus, didn't he, across the throat. That makes that really poignant as well. Yeah, and on hearing Anne say, you know, when she says she was 13... Max sits down on the bed. I think this reveal from Anne is a big moment from them. Yeah, it shows a lot of trust on Anne's behalf to let Max in like this, I think. And Max knows it again, and I think she can relate to a big part of this. I think it's quite obvious, you know, that Anne has never had girlfriends to confide in about this stuff, as in just female friends. So I think this is probably the first time she's really got it off her chest, because obviously Jack would never be a person like she could talk to like this, I don't think, in this regards. We know he's not good with this sort of stuff. Yeah, Anne continues, I always thought he saved me from something. Always been so fucking grateful. And she wonders if Jack took her from something she was supposed to figure her own way out of. I don't know, I think she's being quite hard on herself here. For the time especially, I imagine a lot of women didn't get out of situations like that, let alone, you know, young girls like she was. She says instead of going her own way, she followed Jack and the others and became one of them. She turns around to look at Max and just asks, if I'm not what I was when I was born and I ain't what I've become instead, what the fuck am I? Yeah, my poor Anne, so lost. More words she's ever spoken in the whole show, I think, pretty much. So much insight. Yeah, we'll come back to her in a bit, because this new writer really wanted to hurt us Anne stans this episode. Like, damn. So yes, we're still sort of with them, and Max goes outside the door, and Adele is waiting just outside the doors. Yeah, Adele, she's obviously still shaken up, as it seems, of the rest of the girls. Obviously, word would have gotten around. And again, yeah, Max just being a real one for Anne, and just, you know, sticking by her guns. So yeah, Adele brings up Charlotte, and Max sort of says, look, just don't. Adele thinks they should be getting shot of her. It's a fair point, to be honest to her, you know. To be fair to her, it's fair. The woman that murdered one of your friends, one of your co-workers, being protected like this by your boss, it's probably a bit of a head scratcher. It would be something you'd have to bring up. But yeah, Max, she's in, she's fully committed, as confirmed sort of last episode. So yeah, Adele, she even suggests she can get men to sort it for Max if she's worried about Anne harming her. And Max cuts her short once more, and she's a bit more firmer this time in saying she doesn't want to hear that sort of talk from any of them again. And then she lays it out. When no one in the world, and she re-emphasises the word no one a couple of times. And Adele looks away, knowing she was a big part of that no one. Yeah, Max says when no one gave a shit about her, when, you know, with what them men were doing to her on the beach, Anne did. And that means something to me, she says. Again, not the only reason she's put her flag in with Anne, but a big part. And then, yeah, after a bit of a harsh reality check, she says more softly and speaking as a bit of a boss, a friend and a businesswoman, that the girls can come to her if they have any concerns. Again, yeah, I just love we're seeing this softer sort of side of Max now, this clearer sort of side of her. Okay, so back to Nassau camp, and so the two lookouts are telling Flint what went down. But we obviously will know it's crap by the episode's end, so we can skip over that. But of course, they are privy now to one of Silver's schemes, so that will come up in a future episode. So yeah, great shot of Flint surrounded by candlelight. He's pondering the situation. Dufresne says Hornigold's favour has dwindled since learning the gold's gone. Yeah, men can't see the point of a fight tonight, knowing there's no gold coming as an end result. But he tells him and Silver, who's also with them, that it's just chaos out there, so it's not necessarily good news. The men are talking of ransoming Abigail for cash instead of favours. Dufresne says one way or another, the men want to get paid and soon. And Flint asks him to leave and speak to Silver alone. Again, a little bit more pissing off Dufresne, but we know he's been ready to kind of fully turn for a while now, if he hasn't pretty much already. So Flint knows he can't openly make the case for Abigail, as his authority has been challenged, and it would seem desperate on his part. So he thinks Silver is the next best choice. And Silver cuts him short, and he says we stopped being a thing of relevance when he found out about the gold. And yeah, Flint's trying to keep his temper, and of course Silver, he's playing a sneaky, risky game here. But he's reacting how you would expect him to on learning there is no gold anymore. Silver suggests the gold disappearing has actually benefited Flint. He even says maybe Flint planned the whole thing to his advantage. Flint says he's just as disappointed, but that he needs his help. They need his help. Silver says, don't try and convince me to do it for the sake of their futures. And Flint says, do it for the sake of your own. And he tells him the men listen to him and give a shit about what he has to say. Where else in the world is that true? Where else would you wake up in the morning and matter? Damn, powerful words from Flint. And we know Silver really takes them to heart a little bit. Reluctantly, I think, at first. I don't think he likes that he's been made a little bit here by Flint. You can sort of see it on his face. And even though he'll still be scheming and plotting and doing his Silver thing, I think without realising it, or at least admitting it right now, he has found himself at home here in recent times, I think. So yeah, Flint finishes off by saying, you walk out of this, and where the fuck are you going? Yeah, damn. Yeah, a bit stunned, I think. Silver goes off to walk to head to his task, and Flint sort of says, don't you want to discuss it? And Silver looks back and says confidently, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, not just a bit of duality and what next for Anne this episode. It seems Silver is one of the other ones as well, really weighing things up a lot more now after this conversation. Having to admit something maybe he hadn't admitted to himself yet. So we continue on with Silver, and he drops a box down in the middle of the men congregated. I don't know why he drops a box. I thought he was going to stand on it, but he doesn't, does he? No, he doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, so all eyes are on him, and one of them asks, you know, what was he going to do with the money? They're obviously all a bit gutted and like, oh, I was going to, you know, they're all sort of talking about their plans, what they were planning. And Silver tells them he was going to leave them all and never look back. He's telling them the truth, but I think they sort of laugh as if to say, yeah, all right. He says if they were honest with themselves, they were probably planning on doing the same. He says with no gold, they're down to only two choices they've ever known. Toil for another man's benefit, or steal for their own. Then he says unless the captain has showed us a third way, reconciliation, pardons. And then he obviously goes into all that, and we cut to Billy watching a way off, and he is joined by Dufresne. And obviously, yeah, that word pardons come up, and obviously Silver's talking about a different sort of pardon and a different way of doing it. But obviously Billy's going to approach Dufresne now with another option. So Dufresne, yeah, he's still very much on Flint's arse. And yeah, he knows the men are being manipulated here by Silver, who is a conduit of Flint, more or less. And yeah, it's made clear that Dufresne has no faith in this Peter Ash plan. Yeah, so Dufresne, he knows about the pardons, Billy's pardons, and he's got them on his mind. And he says it's clear what should happen next. And Billy states it's so easy for him to betray his oath, but Dufresne says if they want to march blindly behind him, does it mean we still must as well? Yeah, really showing his colours here, really kind of putting all his cards on the table, and yeah, not playing a good hand. He says with the both of them, they have the chance to give 8 men a real future. And Billy's sort of looking conflicted and asks him if he thinks he could find 8 men. 8 men willing to betray and hand in the captain for a pardon. Dufresne says he does. Billy says to find them and then they'll meet at the bluffs in an hour. the meeting place being called the Bluffs is pretty ironic, considering what Billy's up to here. But yeah, with hindsight, I think Billy really giving Dufresne a chance here to back out of this. He asks him a couple of times, doesn't he? And, to show loyalty to the captain and the rest of their brothers, he really does give them a chance here. Yeah, Dufresne's sort of letting his hatred of Flint really take over loyalty and logic here, which, jumping a fair way ahead, won't be far off what happens to Billy in the end, to be fair. But, yeah, first time round, did you suspect Billy was up to something here? I didn't. I thought this was a genuine treason-type talk from Billy. I thought he was done, that's why first time round when this comes up I was like, oh, maybe Flint really did push him and he's pissed. Okay, so yeah, back to Anne, and just one of two great reflection shots in this episode, really homing in on that duality theme here. Her looking in the mirror and just not knowing who's staring back at her right now. She's in this dress, maybe this is some deep, long buried trans thing, but seeing people in like gendered clothes that do not suit them, that's not their choice, the anxiety it gives me. I cannot explain how uncomfortable I feel for Anne in this scene. It just to try and make yourself fit in somewhere isn't right for you, but you've sort of yet to work out what is. It's a very different situation, I know, but I just mean I can feel Anne's, well, this is what it must be then. If I'm not the person I was yesterday, I must be this person in this weird outfit because this is what most of the other people wear. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, she's not worked it out yet that she can find a compromise and a purpose and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, anyway, she just goes down to wait for Max in the main area. And we meet a new character, Jacob Garrett. He starts talking to her, assuming her to be a new girl on the game. She doesn't know what to do. She's kind of just a deer in the headlights. This is not our Anne at all. Then our Anne would be like, fuck off. Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, maybe even asking herself here, is this what I do now? Maybe she's assuming that's what Max might have suggested for her, because Max sort of comes down and then she has to go and do something and wander off somewhere. Obviously, yeah, sadly, not a lot of option for women back in that time. It doesn't help with this situation that this guy is a very lovely guy. I want to really dislike him, but it actually seems, yeah, he's respectable. And Black Sails, again, doing that great thing where they're introducing a minor character that will get his own little kind of arc. But yeah, it's safe to say Anne is completely disassociating from what's happening right now. Very much on automatic. She asks him if he knows who she is, because she still can't believe he's kind of just talking to her like this. But he doesn't. Of course, in her normal get-up, he might work it out. He might have worked it out. Yeah, she's generally confused of why he's chosen her, why he's approaching her. He just says, you seem nice. And yeah, I'm not sure what her reasoning is following him up. Maybe it's because he was so nice to her, and this thing in the back of her head maybe saying, well, this must be what I do now in this dress, is this person. Like, I'm not that person, so this must be it. Just maybe a bit of that going on. Maybe it's just complete, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a robot right now. I'm just going with the flow and seeing what happens. A bit of that as well. So yeah, I was worried through all of this sequence in the room, first time watching, that he'd go to touch her or something, and she'd be Anne Bonny again, and she'd murk him, and then she'd be in even more trouble because she's so uncomfortable. And honestly, a part of me kind of would have wanted her to as well if he tried, because I hate it. I hate this so much. But yeah, the music, just, her lost face as we hear is kind of, he's going over things. We're hearing it from how she's hearing it. It's just, blah, 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 it's muffled voice. She's not taking anything in. We can hear that really sad sort of music. And it looks like she's sort of just going to do it and walk over to the bed, Again, totally on automatic, I think. But Adele comes in and bails her out. And yeah, she takes over with this guy, jumps on him, kind of bluffs Anne out of it. And yeah, to add to the heartbreak, Anne just sort of meanders out the door, still in this daze. And she sort of slowly sinks to the floor. Max sort of sees her there and comes and just, gives her a hug. She sort of cries, shed a little tear in Max's arms. And yeah, seeing that single tear just go down her face, just, gets me every time. Damn, this is a hard episode. I want Anne back. But yeah, the level up in self-knowledge and confidence she's going to get from going through this sort of really tough patch is going to make it worth it in the long run. But yeah, I've actually seen a couple of comments in the past on Facebook groups or in other reactors' comments, like saying Anne's actress is a bad actor, like more than once. I don't, engage with negative stuff. Just I let it piss me off for 10 seconds and then I get on with my day. But I can't help but feel those commenters either don't understand her character or don't understand acting at all, because this is top tier fucking stuff from Clara Paget. Like, bloody hell. Anyway, right, okay, so we are back with Eleanor and Abigail, and yeah, they're walking through the tunnel, so they've made it out her actual cell now. Eleanor not be rushing with this. She's taken her sweet ass time with this rescue attempt, but it's all right. It all works all right in that respect. But yeah, it's one of those sad Eleanor scenes where we can see the difference a good father makes and how their childhood circumstances just weren't too different. But whereas Peter Ash, he protected Abigail from all this sort of life and kept her away from it, and of course Richard Guthrie dumped Eleanor in the middle of it, left her to it pretty much and said, there you go, good luck. But it's nice to see someone like Abigail recognise and admire Eleanor's bravery and strength a little bit. Yeah, she be fucking it up royally, again a little bit, in terms of vein anyway, but I'm still hanging on to as much Eleanor love as I can before next season. So yeah, I'm holding on to it. I'm holding on to some keeping the flag flying for Eleanor as long as I can. I actually am, in all honesty, really seeing another side of Eleanor that I have been enjoying this watch through. It is very easy to make her a scapegoat and to, she's quite easily to be dislikable if you don't deepen it too much. But when you really start, you can sort of see that it's one of those poor girl didn't actually really stand a fucking chance sort of things. But anyway, so yeah, they get to the gate and it's not going to budge easily, and that'll take them a while, so we'll come back to that. Okay, so the big scene, the meeting by the bluffs, and yeah, Dufresne has the men he's got together and is ready to go, but Billy has brought the crew along, and Dufresne is confused, and Billy goes into his ordeal a bit and about being tortured. He asks Dufresne if he's ever been tortured. Of course he hasn't. And yeah, he talks about how his torturers thought him less than a man, an animal. Obviously, yeah, that word's come up a lot, much like monsters in relation to pirates and this life they lead. And Billy says it's not so much about the fear of the pain, but the knowledge of if they let you go, that it's changed you forever, made you someone you barely recognise against your will. He says he said what he had to say to get out of there, but he has no intentions of honouring their offer. Billy says he would fight to the death to ensure not a single one of them had to face what he did. In that he means not even Flint, well, right now he means it anyway. Yeah, and so Billy lays out what's happened to the crew, the ones that don't know that these few men are going to turn traitor, and that they're willing to turn their backs on them and their captain for the sake of their pardon from the very men that tortured him. So yeah, straight away one of the potential traitors challenges Billy's deceit, and Billy gives him a good beating. He says there will be no more dissent against Captain Flint, and Dufresne is furious. His face is just, yeah, we've never seen him quite so cross. But yeah, Billy says none of us are safe until we are all safe, and he asks them if they have a problem with that. Yeah, there's no further dissension at the moment. We will learn that some of the men do part with Hornigold and Dufresne, we're going to learn in a bit. But yeah, well played by Billy. We'll talk about him in a bit more in his last scene in a bit with Flint, because I think that's a good time to go into more of his stuff. First, back with Eleanor and that bloody gate. We hear a commotion upstairs, and yeah, they've obviously by now found her cell empty, and they're kind of running around looking for Abigail. So yeah, more faffing with the gate. It all goes on a little bit longer than it needs to, I think. So Abigail finally decides it might be a good idea to help Eleanor out with the gate. But yeah, who should appear just as they're on the other side and they're about to lock it but Vane. His face, talk about Anne sort of getting my heart this episode. Vane gets me a little bit this episode as well. Like, he is gutted. He is gutted. This isn't Captain Vane the pirate here right in this moment. This is Charles, the man in love with Eleanor Guthrie. You know, with knowledge between them both, this is a death sentence she's handed him. We know his men have been iffy with her involvement from the jump. He says as much in a little bit. He says he killed Ned for her. She argues he didn't do it for her. Yes, he did. Eleanor, you know, deep down, I'm sure she must know that. Just trying to ease her conscience here a bit, I think. He says, you will turn on absolutely anyone, won't you? He says, you know, he says that, but it's not even nasty or with menace at this point. It's almost like a sad final realisation, like, yeah, this is done, isn't it? Great acting by Zach McGowan here. So much going on his face. He still gives her the option. Again, still just about Charles speaking, I think. He says, come back through the gate, return Abigail, and we'll pretend this didn't happen. I'll sort it with the men. But if she locks that gate, there's no walking back through it, ever. And yeah, and that's Vane the Pirate. That's the, you know, this is it. This is the ultimatum. Yeah, another duality of sorts here. This is, you know, I think he really wants her to walk back through that gate. Not because of what he'll do in anger, but because he doesn't want to lose her. And again, Vane assures her she will hear from him again if she walks through that gate. Eleanor really looks conflicted a moment. If she locks this gate, they're finished. They're done. Relationship done. No working relationship at all. And to her knowledge, Vane would be finished as well, as he said. But yeah, she locks that gate. We hear it click. And she turns her back on Charles Vane forever. And yeah, we see his face, and he's done his morning. He did his morning when he was talking to her. Like I say, I think that was all Charles. It's Vane, you know, or it's Charles Vane, but it's the man, the pirate, not the man that has anything left for Eleanor anymore, I don't think. Really great scene, that one. And it's odd because, I mean, it's not obviously the end of them. They're going to have the one more scene. I think they mightn't they? Yeah, one more scene. But, yeah, big kind of, a big final scene there for them. That's a, wow, I didn't even deepen that. Yeah, that's a really big kind of scene for them. But, anyway, yeah. So, yeah, our last little scene with Max and Anne. And she's still out of sorts. But Max has got her eating a bit, at least, and is about to give her a bit of purpose again. Something to fight for, to look forward to. So yeah, Max talks about wanting to expand this venture they have with Eleanor. Her leads are only getting them so far. And I think Anne is a little confused, but it has her attention a bit. And she's not looking quite so distant. And Max says she's looking to set up proper spies. Someone with knowledge of the island and the seas as well. So to do this, she needs a proper partner who knows the seas and whom she can trust. Finally, you know, a world she knows and a real purpose, especially with a big word like trust being thrown in the bargain after everything that's just gone down in the last couple of episodes. She's still got a bit more self-discovery to do off-screen over the next couple of episodes, and obviously we'll have that important chat with Jack in the final episode of the season. But you can feel that bit of light at the end of the tunnel for Anne here, and Max is definitely holding the torch to help her see the way out right now of this tunnel. So yeah, again, props to Max. She's being a real one, and yeah, really great scenes the last couple of episodes with these two. Okay, so Miranda, only a couple of short little things for Miranda this episode. She and Mr. Guthrie are waiting in the tavern for Eleanor's return with Abigail. Obviously they're a bit worried, a bit concerned. And Mr. Guthrie is asking if she's going to be joining Flint for the voyage. And she just sort of asks, why is it your business? And he warns her about Charlestown and how brutal the men are when it comes to the laws and all that sort of thing. I mean, yeah, for once, he's not lying. But yeah, at that point, anyway, Eleanor enters with Abigail. Miranda greets her and asks if she remembers her, and Abigail gives her a relieved hug. So, yeah, lots of gruff men for God knows how long now, and faces she doesn't know. So this will be a big emotional moment for her, especially, well, I mean, obviously she just saw Eleanor, but a woman she knows well, you know, that'll be a big relief, a motherly kind of figure. Eleanor gives a smile, and then as the hero of the moment, at least from this side of things, we get her, and we see she's on her own once more, it would seem. And she's taken a moment on her own in her office, looking out from her balcony, and Mr. Guthrie comes in and joins her. No words are exchanged, but he puts a reluctant hand on her shoulder, sort of around her. Confused by this moment of tenderness, she pauses for a moment and then just places her head sort of on his shoulder. It's reluctant, but yeah, as I've said a few times, I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him, and I'm confident he's planning something to do the dirty again, to do her dirty as well, especially. But again, it doesn't matter too much, as Vane is going to cancel that out in a minute. But it's a nice moment for Eleanor, if nothing else, you know, I guess a nice bit of closure before he's going to go. Fake or not, you know, her father acknowledging, at least to her, what she's just managed, and, you know, giving her some credit for it and some love. So, yeah, I'd take the nice moment for Eleanor, if nothing else. After a hard day, Max is down sort of in the bar area of the brothel in contemplation. She's having a drink, and Silver, who looks like he's pondering a moment sort of behind her, he asks for an invite. I do love me some Silver and Max scenes. Again, these are pretty scarce, I think, after this season. First, she makes sure he's not here about the Logan and Charlotte ordeal, you know, still looking out for her girl. But she wonders, after, you know, he confirms he's still in with all that, she wonders what he wants to discuss. And John suggests they speak in private. Okay, yeah, so now on to that second great reflective shot I mentioned earlier. The first, of course, was being Anne in the mirror, dealing with her duality in that moment. And now it's Flint looking into the cup and seeing his reflection, and very soon having to face the ghost of his past as James McGraw. Again, who I'd argue has been a bit more present in him the last couple of episodes since the sort of reveal. But first, Billy comes in for a word, and he tells him there's been some defectors, one of which is Mr. Dufresne. Shock horror, finally. Well, hip hip hooray, and don't let the door hit you on the way out, dearie, kind of bye for Dufresne. But yeah, Flint is surprised. So yeah, that answers my question from last episode, that this was all Billy. This was Billy's test of loyalty. Flint had no idea it was going down. Flint remarks they are without a quartermaster now. And Billy sort of is oblivious to kind of really what he's talking about, and he's talking tactics, and he's sort of acting like they don't have this whole sort of unresolved thing between them, and he hasn't been missing for however long. And yeah, and Flint just asks, Billy, I don't mean to be blunt, but what the fuck are you doing? So yeah, they go into that night, and Billy says last thing he remembers is grasping Flint's hand and feeling it slip away. And then, like Flint made Silver a little bit earlier, I think Billy calls him out on a truth a little bit, and he says, I told the men you tried to save me, but the truth is, it's just as likely you let go. And Flint asks him what he thinks it was, and Billy says, I'll never know for certain, it's possible you will never know for certain. And you can see Flint processing that very true thought, but it ultimately gives us, the audience, the final, yeah, you're never going to know for sure either kind of thing. Billy gives him his backing, but he mentions Gates and that he won't turn his back on him like he did and make the same mistakes. Yeah, very ballsy from Billy here. He's saying, I'm in, but I'm not the same guy I was. I won't be taking your shit. In so many words is what he's sort of saying here. Yeah, so now going back to what I was just saying with Flint, battling a bit with his duality this episode as well. Big callback to that past life we saw in those first 5 episodes of the season. You can see it on his face when he sees Abigail sat down on the table. You can just see the flashbacks, I think, of that past life coming to him. Miranda walks over to him and says, because I think obviously Miranda has become part of his present life, but obviously seeing Abigail will bring it all back. And yeah, she walks over to him and says, why don't you introduce yourself? And he removes his swords, and Abigail says, you're Captain Flint. And he says with a lot of emotion and weight behind it, my name is James McGraw. And yeah, goddamn, that one hit. That really hit the way he says that. Just, yeah, the emotion on his face, he's still in there somewhere. He's still in there somewhere. We can see the duality of him facing this big part of his past. He knows he has to let McGraw run things for this one, at least with Abigail. Of course, we'll learn more about his Flint persona in a couple of episodes as well, so we can really delve into that more then and go over all that. Okay, yeah, so really little scene with Hornigold and Dufresne. I'll just do the bare bones of it. Dufresne tells are ready to leave Hornigold. He's packing up. What if they had something to offer the English? Someone. And yeah, obviously more of that in time, because it will end up not being the someone we assume. Okay, so yeah, really nice little scene with Flint and Eleanor now. Flint's setting sail first light, he informs her, and she tells him her father has left to lay the groundwork with Underhill for their partnership. She hopefully talks about what it might be like here on his return, and he says if we're not careful, we might actually see this thing through, and he gives a rare smile. Oh, this is an up and down episode on the emotion scale for me. Like, oh, bloody hell. I really, you still want to root for them, but they're both so consumed by this, like, much like Thomas was, that they still can't see yet what a dream it is and what a really unrealistic kind of dream it is. Very hard to achieve one. Flint confirms he did suspect that Eleanor took Abigail without Vane's consent when she brings it up. I think, yeah, she's feeling a bit guilty, rightly so. Again, it's really conflicting. It's a bit of a duality in as a viewer as well, actually, because yeah, you can see it, you can see why she's done it, but you can feel for Vane, and you can feel for their relationship, and you can feel the flim flam of it all and how she's kind of turned on him. So yeah, really tough one morally. She asks Flint if he thinks there's any chance that Vane will survive the men's retribution. And yeah, his non-answer is answer enough for her, and that's sort of the conversation done. She basically says all that sacrifice is now entirely reliant on him. So yeah, no pressure then, Flint. Yeah, and is this one of their last, not one of their last scenes? I know they're going to have some season 4 stuff. I don't think they have anything in season 3, maybe. But anyway, I do that, and then things happen and I forget about them, and then I'm like, ignore what I said 4 episodes ago. I completely forgot about this scene. So I'm going to try not to do that so much. So right, we are back with Max and Silver, and Max finds herself listening intently again this episode, but this time it's not for emotional reasons. Silver lays it out and confirms he's lost faith in Flint in terms of the prize, that going for it conflicts with Flint's new plans. And yeah, we've definitely seen that loss of faith the last few episodes with Silver for sure. And yeah, Silver goes into all that a little bit, and Max confusingly asks, why are you telling me this? And then Silver lays out the truth to her. The men are lying for him. They came back so quick because the beach was almost unmanned. The men are dying of disease. The gold is still exactly where they left it on the beach. I love that the music is swelling up, and Max is smiling, smelling an Erna here, her face is lit up. And yeah, he gets to the point. Does she know a crew that might be willing to aid in this endeavour? Yeah, she does. It's imploded a little bit, this crew, the last couple of episodes, but they'll be right on it soon. So, yeah, really good sort of cliffhanger there. So yeah, final scene, and I think that last scene would have been the more hype, impactful scene to end on personally. I would have switched these myself, but anyway, doesn't matter. Mr. Guthrie is on a cart in the dead of night, and something has stirred the horses. It's very spooky lighting, really nice kind of scene setting, and we just get the reveal of Vane's crew right at the end. I actually couldn't tell if Vane was there among them. I feel he probably would have been front and centre if he was, but this is his doing, of course, and we'll learn all about that next episode. And yeah, this will have its big repercussions next season. So yeah, I feel like that was a lot. So yeah, let's get into the afterthoughts and the MVP and all that sort of stuff.
Last item.
Yeah, this is one of those episodes I forget is so good and just packed full of great character stuff, until I watch it again and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good one. I've said duality about 100 times, it feels like, but we really do see a lot of our characters struggle with that this episode, and we ourselves as a viewer are also sort of like, oh, I don't know how to feel about this or this a couple of times. Anne is the obvious kind of first thought character-wise, but Flint, Billy, Silver, Eleanor, Vane, even Max, knowing she still has to be a trustworthy and reliable boss, as well as a supportive partner to Anne. In her early scenes with Adele, we're sort of having a bit of duality going on. All our main characters dealing with some sort of inner conflict at some point. Yeah, as much as I really did miss him this episode, and you miss him not being here, I think it was quite wise not featuring Jack this episode, as he's still actually playing a huge part in the discussion. But this is something Anne needed to go through without him, on her own. And we'll see in some ways it ends up making their bond even stronger than it ever was. Yeah, this, like I said, I think earlier on, this almost feels like a second part to the last episode. A double chapter before we move on to the final sort of phase, the final third of this season. This one doesn't rate quite as highly as last couple episodes for me personally, but as I said, we're still talking upper echelon score-wise from here on out. I'm going to give this one a still very, very strong 8.7 rating. Okay, so MVP. Again, another really strong Anne episode, but again, I can't give her the nod. Not quite filling MVP requirements, or she'd always win and this would never be a competition. Adele gets a nod of the cap, or a nod of the beanie. Yeah, I think she's been quite reasonable under the circumstances of what went down. And then she does go on to bail Anne out of the situation with Jacob Garrett later in the episode. But I do think it's a 3-horse race between Silver, Billy and Max. Slippery Silver in full effect. We know what he was like last season. He was sneaky and weaselly, and yeah, it seemed like he was forming a good bond with Flint. But we've seen he's playing the player a bit again here. And yeah, Billy, he has had a level up since his return. We hear the horrible ordeal he went through. And yeah, it seems like he's back with a new determination. Yeah, he's going to put his cards in with Flint at this moment. But he lets him know, I'm not afraid to change my hands this time. And he uses the pardons he was offered as a way to find out who's loyal and who's not. Brotherhood, obviously, an important part for Billy and his morals. And Max is up for MVP again in relation to just being there for Anne while she's going through this sort of ordeal. Sticking up for her, involving her in something she understands and can find purpose in. I think Silver is going to have stronger shouts coming very regularly, very soon. So this one, yeah, is ultimately between Max and Billy. Oh, man, I really hate to see Max lose out twice in a row, especially when she's not always in the running as much. But I think Billy's got to get this episode's MVP. It's close, but yeah, Billy coming through this episode, I think. And yeah, he's also now on 2 MVPs. Okay, best scene and quote. Yeah, this is just getting harder and harder. I think I'm going to keep with Billy, and I'm going to go with him laying the truth on to Dufresne and getting shot of him finally. Though, of course, Anne's scenes are a great but tough watch. Best quote. Some good ones. I love Flint telling it like it is to Silver. Where else in the world would you wake up in the morning and matter? You walk out of this and where the fuck are you going? And then Billy giving Flint the same sort of tea when Flint asks him what he thinks happened, and he says, I'll never know for certain. It's possible you'll never know for certain. And I think Anne's reflective. If I'm not what I was when I was born and I ain't what I've become instead, then what the fuck am I? And all that speech is amazing as well. But yeah, nothing I can pick out singly with quotes, just all very great. Without Jack, not too many comedic ones this episode. But yeah, another fantastic episode, and I'm looking forward to really getting into this last kind of third and final bulk of season 2. I will be back very soon with episode 8. Alright guys, take care, have a good week or so, and I'll catch you soon. Peace. See you on the flip side.